Hey, it's Pat from ESP. We're here with Josh Middleton at a very hot Bloodstock 2022. How would you say? It was blazing from where we were.
Yeah, very, very hot. Just lucky to have escaped it without collapsing from heat exhaustion and stuff like that. So yeah.
So what I wanted to do is really sort of kick off and talk about your guitar and really just give us a rundown of the specs on what it is you're playing up there.
Yeah, okay. So this is the JM-II. I found out a few years ago now that I really like the sound of the bolt-on neck. It's got a really snappy sort of pick attack, not in a harsh way, but a way that really lets that initial pick attack just kind of cut through a bit more. So we've got an alder body and a roasted maple neck, and the bolt-on construction still really good for high fret access. The Fishman pickups, the Fluences, I use the Fluence Moderns. Been using them for years. I love active pickups. I want every note to sound consistent when I'm picking. But it's cool that they've also got the passive sound in there as well. The most notable thing that I think is unique to this guitar is the bridge, which is a tunematic bridge, but it's got the recess in it. So it sits a lot lower than the average tunematic bridge. Super comfortable. I've mentioned this before when I've spoken to you in the past, that I really like a tunematic bridge because when you're playing aggressively on stage, I can always feel where my palm mute position is. Sometimes the ultra low profile bridges, I kind of start to know where the string stops and the bridge begins. So I like that kind of palm mute pivot point, and it's so comfy being recessed. And other specs, yeah. Ebony fretboard, like I said, it's roasted maple, so it looks really nice. Very sturdy as well, so it doesn't go out. And locking tuners. And this is a custom, this is a black shadow burst finish, which is only available on this model.
Awesome, excellent. So with that in mind, post guitar, where do you go with your rig after that in a situation like Bloodstock stage?
So at the moment, in both bands, I've just been using Kempers. Just convenience. Both bands are on in-ears, so it's just consistent. You don't need to worry about mic placement, and I'm very particular about my guitar tone. And I love real amps, but I like to be able to capture my real amps at home in my studio and just get it exactly how I want it. And just
it's something you profiled yourself.
Yeah, so it's a 5150 and a Mesa Boogie cab and a Maxon OD808 pedal, the standard kind of metal tone, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so with that in mind, what I wanted to do is talk to you a little bit about something specific to you, and that obviously you play really technical music, but you also, your voice is up there too, right? So to sing and play, it's always been something that I've never been able to do. How do you separate yourself timing-wise and technically one from the other?
I mean, it's a lot of boring practice. Like, I just have to sit there and kind of whisper at night before I go to bed, just downstairs on my own, just in the lounge, just like. So also there's loads of songs that I've never done both. I've never played and sung before. On loads of our albums there'll be songs that we've never played live. No, if I wanted to play them, I couldn't just do it now. I'd have to go.
Is that because the recording process is tracking and then vocal?
Yeah, so we never really write just like jamming in the room, and lyrics especially always come last. Like sometimes we have written like in a rehearsal room jamming, but lyrics just come later when we're recording, and sometimes it's like, oh, these are the songs, we'll play that live, let's play that live. And if I need to play a song that we've never played live, then I need to just learn it and learn to do both at the same time. So it's
excellent. So I was going to ask you about your rehearsal, your practice process through. Do you tend to write first, or jam first, or then take it to a rehearsal or a pre-production session?
Yeah, for the most part, it's write everything separately at home, get to the studio, record it. Then when it comes to playing some shows, decide what songs we're going to do. Everyone go away and learn them on their own, and then when we do a rehearsal, we're hopefully good.
So say Bloodstock, for instance, you'll choose a set, the particular set that you're going to do for the show, and then you take that in together.
Yeah, so we had one rehearsal, which is our first rehearsal in 2 years. So just one rehearsal wasn't quite enough, but I think we did all right.
Well, I think last time we spoke, it was just it was on Zoom during COVID, and I think that you mentioned on stage that obviously you missed the opportunity to play last time because you obviously got so sick.
Yeah.
But I mean, this must have felt doubly good today to do the show.
Yeah, it was great. Last year I got COVID like 4 days before Bloodstock, so I felt rough, and yeah, obviously couldn't go around spreading it, so we cancelled, and that was really disappointing because like we hadn't played a show in so long. So yeah, it's great to be back.
Excellent. So perhaps we could talk about preparation for a gig like this, how you might warm up, something you could introduce to the viewers about where you would go in terms of before you walk on stage.
Yeah, so annoyingly, I've got to warm up 2 instruments. So it's guitar first and then vocals closer to the set time. Luckily, in this heat, it's quite warm, so your body and muscles feel quite limber anyway and stuff. So yeah, in terms of, I just play songs. I just kind of just do a bit of down picking and rhythm stuff, get the right hand going. I just sort of kind of run scales, just like I always used to, just going up and down modes, picking every note, and then I just do vocal stuff.
Wicked. So in terms of the riffs that you play, is there a particular process to how you write your guitar riffs or your parts or your solos?
No, I mean, in more recent years I've been getting more into just writing standing up and trying to get more of like a physical feeling or reaction from the riffs, because I've done a lot of like sitting at a computer writing stuff, and especially like writing solos, and it's like, then you get to play it live, you're like, oh, I've got to go up there when the guitar's like that. So
well, that's interesting, because I was going to ask you about guitar strap height, because it's not something everybody thinks about, and they just kind of put a strap and like, oh, maybe that sort of feels comfortable. Is there a difference between obviously producing, recording at home in front of a screen, and then how you actually, your posture live?
I mean, there's definitely a difference, because normally I'll play like this at home, and obviously sometimes I'll do some like classical position if I'm tracking some solos, and obviously playing guitar stood up. So I sometimes stream on Twitch, and I've been practicing for these shows just on there, and I deliberately was making my guitar like way lower than I normally have it. So then when it comes to playing the gig, it's like, oh, nice, it's higher. But one of my guitars that was in E flat, the other tuning, still a bit too low for one of our songs. I had to do some like sweeps up the dusty end, and I was like, nope, my hand's not doing that today. I need to bring the height back up a bit for that one.
Awesome, cool. So when you approach your actual technique and the way you play, is there any particular things? I mean, I notice your action's quite low on this guitar. For playing heavy music, obviously you're quite aggressive. Does that affect how your strings respond?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'd say it's kind of medium sort of action. I hate fret buzz on the low strings for like, chugging. So I try and make sure there's none of that happening.
You said you had a guitar in E flat, for instance, so that's tuned down as one half step.
So I used to play a lot thicker strings. We used to be in E standard, and I'd play 11 to 49s, which is quite tight sounding. In more recent years, I've preferred thinner gauge strings, mainly just because I'm so like focused on guitar tone and recording at home, and I think thinner strings sound better. I think you get more low end off a thinner string sometimes. So I'm using 10 to 52s in 2 different tunings. So we play in C sharp standard now. We had some songs that were in D standard, but everything's in C sharp standard now. And all the stuff that used to be in E, we're playing live in E flat. And I use 10 to 52s in both tunings.
Excellent. So in terms of riffs and things, what I want to do is dig a little bit. I mean, I can hear when I watch the set, which was fantastic today, various different influences from kind of bands I grew up on. If I was to say to you, like, key protagonists in terms of what you do and what you write, could you take us through maybe 2 or 3 riffs that you not wish you'd written but have become part of your repertoire in terms of the way you approach playing guitar? Yeah, other bands. Go dig back a little bit for us.
I mean, there's loads. Obviously, like Pantera was a big one for me growing up.
Any particular riffs you could play?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, it's funny because stylistically they have a lot of bluesy stuff, and I don't do that. I kind of don't do chromatic stuff either, like a new level. Like, I'm such a theory guy that I'm like, sometimes I just can't let myself do chromatic. So it's a weird one. So they were always a direct influence growing up, but it was never that obvious in terms of the riffing. But I guess something like Shedding Skin. The kind of, it's not triplets, but the kind of gallopy stuff. Sepultura was a big one for me. Like the Arise album, like the stuff like that. Death, huge influence, like the Symbolic album. And obviously Metallica, like Blackened. Pretty much most of Injustice for All, but like
that is a monster. That's interesting that you played that riff around the E and the G, because it's played not with the typical power chord shapes. So it's played with thirds. They, I think it was Harvester of Sorrow that you did, or yeah.
I think, I haven't played it in a while, so I might have been doing that wrong, but yeah. For Sylosis, we got like really into using inverted power chords in the beginning because we played in E standard. And you kind of get that kind of low end once you if you palm mute in the right way, you can get that kind of swell of the low end that a lower tuning might have. So inverted power chords was something that I was always into. I think that, I don't know if Obituary used a lot of them. They're a band that I loved growing up, and they had a really grimy guitar tone. So I don't know if it's necessarily just the guitar tone they had.
I could never work out whether it was on the middle pickup or whether they just put the fifth on the bottom of each chord.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I always could. To me, it sounded like inverted power chords all the time. So I was just got into using them. I think they use Rat distortion pedals. But either way, yeah, Obituary was probably part of why I got into inverted power chords. And then other bands like early Machine Head and Fear Factory when I was a kid. Yeah.
What about your approach to lead playing?
Yes, I know a decent amount of theory to get my way around the fretboard. I kind of improvise when I'm recording and just stumble across stuff.
Use your ears.
Yeah, a lot of the time, and sometimes I'll deliberately write something, write a lick with a lot of thought behind it as opposed to just improvising, and sometimes stuff just happens naturally. But I definitely I improvise in the studio, but I'll start to refine what I've been improvising and go back, and it becomes a solo over time. So it's not necessarily I'll roll the tape and I'll just wail, but it starts off like that, and then it just kind of refine it.
Developmental process. Are there any particular techniques that you like to use, like sweep picking or pentatonics or alternate picking?
So I always like the sound of picking every note. It just sounds more aggressive. So I don't like too much legato stuff. I really want to hear every note picked. It sounds more aggressive to me. I guess it's like a Slayer and Zakk Wylde kind of thing, just like that really. Sweep picking was something that I got into doing a lot of. I didn't want it to sound too cheesy or neoclassical or Malmsteeny. So I used to come up with just, Dimmu Borgir, who are playing tonight, they're a huge influence on us, and they had their Puritanical album was the first, one of the first black metal records I got into, and I really loved the kind of way that every chord would be a different key, that kind of black metal sound where you move minor shapes around. And they had keyboards outlining arpeggios, and I was like, oh, that's cool, but we don't have a keyboard player and we're not going to get one. So I got into doing sweep picking, moving around.
Literally just change your key.
Exactly. And I got into using sweep picking to make loops or arpeggiated stuff, not necessarily in a solo, but to create a lead part.
Well, that's an interesting simple technique that you can employ. You can just kind of move a fifth chord around and move the arpeggio in relation to
and because even using big full chords with loads of distortion, I'd rather just have a simple power chord and then an arpeggio over the top and separate it up in that way.
Excellent. So just in terms of thinking about a live situation, one of the scariest guitar moments that you faced? Anything that's really made you kind of go, oh no, and kind of worry?
Yeah, I had one today, like my strap. I was like, really? I told my tech, Martin, I was like, I think the strap needs to come up, and he did raise it, but it was a bit more that needed to come up. So there was one song called Terrace, and I was just like, my hand does not want to do that today. So that was scary, because it's like more of an iconic moment for us. Like, the guitar fans know it, and I was just like, well, they're going to think I've not practiced today, but it is what it is. It's fine. So that was scary, but in other stuff, yeah, you know, breaking a string sucks, but at least I don't have a Floyd on this guitar, so if it does break, it's all right.
Yeah, you stay in tune. Awesome. Cool. So anything we can expect from you in the near future?
We're working on a new record at the moment. I don't know if it'll be out in the near future. It'll be next year, probably. Yeah, just doing as much as we can, though. But the record's the focus right now. Get that done.
Brilliant. Well, look, thanks for your time, Josh. It's great to see you back and healthy, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.